1. This malicious compliance was years in the making and totally worth it. Now our contracts are digitized, by the way. In my industry of freelance workers, there's a company whose service is handling contracts. Sounds like a productive place, but it's not. Being generous, they're 75% useless and they piss off every one of us. One guy walking away from the window once said, "Now I know why they're behind bulletproof glass." Every year they require us to fill out an I-9 form for employment eligibility in the US, even though for every freelance job we take, we have to fill out a new one. Many of us have told our new employer that the contract place has it on file, but that won't do. At least one employer met that statement by asking what contract place is. They even have a sign that says we'd still be asked, and therefore required to fill out a new one by an employer, if you're still wondering how useless contract place is. So I started messing with them. One year I decided to use a rubber stamp with my address on it to fill out the form at contract place. I use this on the same form for every new job, as well as all the other paperwork that requires my annoying to write 20 times address. It's never been a problem because, well, you can read it. While driving home, the contract place calls me. "Sir, this rubber stamp won't do. You need to come back and fill it out by hand." I say, "No problem," but just keep driving home. Problem solved for that year. The next year, I'm there for some other 25% stuff, and looks like it's time for a new I-9. And I use the stamp. She looks at it and says, "Hold on a second." She's gone for a minute, and I know she's asking if it's legit. Nope. "Sir, the rubber stamp is not acceptable. This one will have to be destroyed and you'll have to fill out a new one." I thought it odd that she informed me of the fate of the bad document as if I should feel sorry for it or something. Kind of a psycho move if you ask me, because you can smoke it for all I care. MC time. I'm handed a blank one, through the bulletproof glass slot, and said, "Here's the thing, I have nerve damage in my hand, so it won't look very neat." She said it was okay. I didn't have nerve damage, but I was testing to see what she would say. Would they take pity on my condition and opt for the rubber stamp one? What if the handwritten one was too messy? "Let's find out," I say. "Okay." I'm left-handed, so I started writing with my right hand. I figured if I was a righty trying with my left, it would be obvious that I was faking. But everyone is right-handed, right? So I legit tried writing my annoying-to-write address as clearly as I can, but it's bad. Real bad. It was utterly illegible, even to me. And I just wrote it and knew what it was supposed to say. It looks like I used my feet. I apologized with sincerity as I hand it over, because I did actually think it would be clearer. I expected her to say, "You know what, I think this stamped one is okay." Nope. She accepted the chicken-scratched one, looked at it and said, "That's good," or "That's what we need," or something like that. I remember exactly what I said about accepting such a document. And that's how the terrorists win. And walked away. Ultimately, they probably were afraid of discrimination against the disabled if they rejected it. I got that document in there as the last one before it all went digital. For some reason, the digital ones are good forever or something, because we don't need to fill that out yearly anymore. 2. I'd wanted an electronic planner for a couple of years, but hadn't found one that did what I thought it should. So when I saw the just-released Pilot 5000 in Circuit City, it took me 2 minutes to decide it was what I'd been looking for. It was a non-trivial purchase for me in the 3rd month of my first job out of college, in an area which I'd only just figured out was about a third again in the cost of living I'd grown up with. I was much pleased with my new toy, diving right into figuring out its arcana. I was also insufferably pleased about the whole thing, showing it off to anyone who didn't run fast enough. A few months later, the new remained largely unscuffed, and I was actually using it. I never forgot anything that I actually wrote down, always had my contacts handy, and had a way to take legible notes which I could easily access on my PC, at work and home. All I had dreamed of and more. Then droppeth the directive. Everyone in my group was required to get, keep current, and use paper. Electronic expressly forbidden. Organizer. Reviewable on demand by our manager. My boss, dropper of the directive, was an easy-going sort who I blithely assumed would be instantly won over by my explanation of the indisputably superior organizing capabilities of my shiny G Wismo. So yeah, that didn't happen. He was nice enough about it, because he was a great boss, but he also was not budging. He did explain to me that he was responding to an issue with a specific direct report who was a great guy, good at his job, and utterly incapable of keeping his schedule. Since everyone else in the department was already using organizers, he decided to require all of us to keep an organizer as a way to not publicly single this one guy out. And my organizer, being the only electronic one, put me in an ideal situation. I returned to my cubicle, kinda disgusted. I didn't want to double maintain an unused planner just for show. I really didn't want to spend $70 annually on one. I worked for a major mover in the semiconductor industry, for crying out loud. I already had a cutting-edge electronic solution in place that I actually used. It did everything a paper planner could and more. It actively reminded me of my appointments. It gave me access to my data wherever I was, and by the miracle of a USB hotsync, let me access and update my data on my computer. I saw the answer. Opening the software on my PC, I pulled up the calendar, and yes, there it was. A sweet, sweet print button. I quickly got a binder from our excellent admin, printed out Natch's organizer labels for the spine and front on her nifty label maker, and filled that binder with extra papery printout of my mostly blank electronic calendar for the year. I proudly presented this paper organizer to my boss, explaining that I'd be updating the hard copies to reflect future changes. He looked at it, heaved the sort of sigh with which parents of difficultly precocious children are well acquainted, and admitted that this did, in fact, comply with what he had asked for. Paper, current, reviewable. Sure, it wasn't what he'd meant, but it was, in fact, what he had said. I was happy. I wasn't out any money, and he was, well, resigned. I kept that binder updated for a month or so before he got his own pilot. Everybody else in the department followed suit too, eventually. We printed labels for them after I maturely resisted the overwhelming urge to randomly swap them all around during a break in a long department meeting. 3. I work at an electrical manufacturing plant, and we have to wear these windbreaker-type jackets for what I thought was PPE, but it turns out it's just a uniform. Today I was running late and left my jacket at home. No big deal, I thought. They have extras I can use. I get to work to find out they're locked in HR's office. I see multiple people not wearing their jacket and are wearing sports attire instead. So I said fuck it and just went to my workstation. My department wears lab coats, so we really only have to wear our jackets going to and from break. Well, sure enough, on my way to break, this, and I'm using this term very generously here, lady supervisor confronts me about my lack of jacket, while simultaneously not wearing one herself. I've never seen her wear a jacket. Here's how the conversation went.
Hey, you have to wear your jacket while on the plant.
I accidentally left it at home this morning.
Doesn't matter. You need to have one on. Go to HR and get one.
I tried this morning and their door was locked. Plus, I don't see you wearing one, so why should I?
I just got here, and you've been here all day, so you shouldn't have an excuse.
I'd just walk away because I didn't want to waste my break arguing with this lunatic. When I got back from break, I grabbed my water bottle from my locker and filled it from the drinking fountain nearby, which I do every day. The lady's desk just happens to be right next to my locker. Side note, since we make electrical components, we are not allowed to have any water on the floor unless it's in our locker, and I abide by this. So I fill my water and sip it as I'm walking back to my locker. She sees this.
Hey, you can't do that either.
What, I'm not allowed to drink water?
Yes, no water on the plant floor, period.
You can't control my fucking body, and my supervisor says we're allowed to have it in our locker. She didn't like my attitude, so she paged my supervisor and told him about the 2 altercations we had. A bit later, my supervisor pulls me aside and tells me about how I should respect someone's wishes, and that company policy is to wear our jackets at all times. I asked him why I saw at least 10 people today not wearing their jackets, including her. Apparently, the president of the company sent out an email saying that today only, employees can wear clothing that represents a sports team. I work weekends, so this memo never made it to me. Cue malicious compliance. So I thought to myself, what's just stopping me from writing a sports team on my shirt and claiming it to be my favorite team? So that's exactly what I did. I printed out a blank label and wrote local NFL team on it and placed it on my chest. It's now lunchtime. I walk out and she's sitting at her desk wearing a jacket. I'm guessing my supervisor said something to her about not wearing a jacket. The look in her face when she saw my shirt was the most happiest I've ever felt. It was a sight to see. I can tell she was outraged, but she had nothing to say. 4. When I was transitioned out of the military, I naturally went back down to my home state. This meant I had a lot of adulting to do to set up my new life. So I got up early one morning and started knocking things out in my to-do list. License renewal, medical stops, change of address, etc., etc. Due to this, I was rolling around town with every scrap of paperwork about me in existence. Well, the day is going great and I'm down to my last task, registering my car with the tag office. I pull up to the place with 30 minutes to spare, grab the few necessary documents, I googled the process before and knew exactly what I would need, and head inside. There were only 2 others in line, and I'm at the counter in no time. I explained to the lady at the counter that I'm transferring my car back to my home state, and I'm looking to get a veteran's tag. She, kind of rudely I might add, tells me how much it costs, but their card reader is down and I need exact change in cash. She then tells me where an ATM is. It's about a 10-minute walk and still wouldn't give the exact change I need. Not having cash in hand, I shrug and walk out the door. I got 2 steps out and remember, this type of transaction is free for veterans in my state. I walk right back in and explain this. She starts the process but appears very agitated. We get to the part where she starts asking for documents and I start providing. After seeing everything I have, she starts claiming my proof of residence isn't enough, and I need at least 2 different utility bills, and the cable bill I had in my hands wouldn't work, which was total BS. At this point, I figure out what she's trying to do. She just doesn't want to deal with me, and is trying to run the clock down until they close by giving me arbitrary demands for paperwork I shouldn't be able to dig up in the next 20 minutes. Very well, I respond. Cue malicious compliance. I walk back to my car, grab the file full of neatly organized documents, and spend the next 5 minutes shuffling them like playing cards. Wait till 5 minutes before they close and walk back in. Accordion folder of chaos in hand, I slowly walk up to her counter yet again. She is not happy to see me back. I set my folder onto the counter and ask, "What were those documents you needed?" She tells me but tries to double down and names off more stuff this time. Bad idea on her part. I start thumbing through my folder as slowly as I possibly can, going from A to Z, flipping past every piece of paper in this thing, removing documents as I find them and start organizing them into sections on the countertop. It took forever. Once finished, I slowly and carefully explain each section. So here you have 2 months' worth of cable bills, a power bill, water bill, phone bill with associated receipts for payments rendered. Here you have my birth certificate, social security card, 2 separate passports, state-issued ID, and driver's license. That's followed by original discharge papers, military ID, and a copy of my original orders. Now here is my leasing agreement for my apartment, along with 4 money orders and receipts for the past 4 months of rent paid. Lastly, over here we have a bill of sale for my car, proof of insurance, 5 years worth of vehicle registrations, and vehicle title. Is there anything I've missed? Without a word, she starts banging away at her keyboard. A minute later, asks me what type of license I want. I tell her. The one I was getting was supposed to display an award I received while in the military. She smugly tells me that I need proof I earned said reward. Cue 5 more minutes of slowly digging through paperwork. I pull out the completely unnecessary award sheet, and then point out it's also listed on my discharge paperwork, already in her hand. 5 minutes spent updating my info in the system, without even looking at the paperwork I provided, and I left with a brand new tag in hand. 30 minutes after they were supposed to have closed. I still laugh about it to this day. 5. I work at a robotic systems company. We design and build systems at our warehouse, and then ship and install it at the customer's facility. My job is to assemble and wire the system at our end, and another team installs. So I got this story secondhand. The product was for a large food company, and it basically sorted finished food products and stacked them on pallets. The customer already had 2 of these machines, and the new one was going to be integrated into the same computer system that the other 2 were running off of. The project manager, Guy, was not a very smart dude, and was not well liked. He had personal connections to the customer. He decided that to make them happy, he would throw in a few extra features in the program. But he also decided that there was no need to tell upper management, because that would bump the price up considerably. And so he emails my coworker John, the programmer.
Hey John, I have some things that need to be added to the code for this job. We need to keep this one off the books.
He then explains what he promised to the customer.
I don't know if that's a good idea,
John said hesitantly.
It could cause serious problems with the pre-existing system. No, it'll be fine. Just get it done.
John wasn't a fan of this, but at this point he knew that it wasn't a good idea to disagree with the guy. He decided that if something went horribly wrong, he had the emails to back him up. And hey, if something did go wrong, maybe Guy will actually get punished more than just a slap on the wrist. Anyway, he wrote the software and sent it off. We finished building the machine at our warehouse and had it tested. Everything checked out. So we packed it up and shipped it across the country to be reassembled by the install team and plugged into the original system. And the new program is downloaded.
Catastrophic failure.
The entire system goes down. This machine is the last step of the production line for the food company. This means that the entire facility is shut down until this system is up and running. And because it's a food place that deals with refrigerated food, this means that all the product going through this factory is spoiled. It took them 48 hours to fix this and get it running again. It ended up costing the customer tens of thousands of dollars in food product and lost revenue. Needless to say, Guy lost his job. No one was sad to see him go. But John is still at the company, with not much more than a stern talking to. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 118. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I would also appreciate it if you share the video around with all your friends and family on your various social medias. I've seen more people doing that recently, and I do appreciate it. It's very, very helpful to me. Okay, it's the 14th today, isn't it? Yes, it is. Let's see. Okay, so we're all good for today. Thank you very much to everyone who joined me at the weekend. The first for the live gaming stream we did. Always nice to get back to it, even if it wasn't quite as long as usual. Okay, let's see. This is Monday. It is it's Valentine's Day. I'm not bitter. I'm just single. One day of the year, car companies got together and decided to make you feel bad for not being in a relationship, and boy do we appreciate them for that. I would say it's a made-up holiday, but let's be honest, all holidays are made up, every single one of them. One day there's no holiday, then people say, there should be a holiday here, and then there's a holiday, and then that's fine. And then, next thing you know, there's presents, cards, chocolate, avoiding your family, or a desperate scramble to get someone to love you. Calm, Hellfreezer. Happy Hellfreezer, you'll find love one day. Maybe it's down the back of the sofa. I haven't cleaned that out for a little while. I probably should. Maybe there's love down the back of the sofa. Or maybe it's in a cereal pack. I don't usually get the cereal with prizes in it right now. Well, not anymore. Not since I was little. I buy grown-up cereal, like Crunchy Nut Cornflakes, and things with bran in them. Because I'm an adult, and you have to keep the cereal fun to a minimum when you're an adult. Also, Crunchy Nut Cornflakes are the best cereal ever. Not cornflakes, Crunchy Nut Cornflakes. I'm rambling now, aren't I? Okay, I should probably shut up and move on. Okay. With that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.